One of the most consistent and perhaps even persistent debates of the hobby is which grading company should I choose? Well, today we'll certainly try to answer that question. And maybe, just maybe, I'll annoy some people into yelling at me in the comments about forgetting Sgc. But first, roll that intro. Hey Gengar Gang, what is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another video. In today's video, friends, we take a look at sportscardsresearch.com, specifically their 2021 article on the best grading companies of the year. Now, this video is based off of the article that is being shown on screen right now, so as always, you can check down below for the link to the article, assuming I remember to do it. And if I forgot to add it to the description, feel free to get in touch and I will gladly get you the link as well as add it to the YouTube video. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's chit chat about the best grading card company of 2021. Now the article is really easily structured. They basically give you some commentary and then they'll tell you what's good and bad about each of the companies imaged on screen. Bear in mind, this is a sports card website. It's really not a surprise given that their name is Sports Card Research. But I think what's important to note is that sports cards are a huge part of the overall trading card community. And so if they have very high standards and, we assume that sports cards hobbyists care for their cards, it's pretty clear and a really simple and easy approach to say that we as Pokemon card hobbyists should adopt some of those philosophies and techniques. So that's really the logic why I like looking at all the sports card data, research, and the lessons learned from all the different history within the sports card hobby. A lot of it is going to apply to us, especially as time goes on and our hobby continues to age and, more importantly, mature in many interesting ways. So, without further ado, let's take a look at it. Obviously, Sgc, as I mentioned in the intro, is not included. So, blame it on them, not on me. I'm not excluding them because I clearly don't have a bias. Instead, I'm just going to go over the ones that are here. And the reason that I bet it was excluded is because, realistically, they don't grade sports cards to such a significant volume that they would have earned a mention in this article as of yet. So I assume within the next coming year, maybe if they do a 2022 video and I cover that in a video in the future, I think it's a relatively safe bet that at that point you'll definitely see Sgc out here. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the best companies, they just kind of give you your high level bracket, are Beckett, GMA, HGA, PSA, ISA, and Sgc. And if those aren't enough TLA or three-letter acronyms for you, stick around because it's only going to get worse from here. So first up is Beckett Grading. Now Beckett Grading, I do like this format. They'll give you the price, so anywhere from $200 to $250 depending on service level, with a very good and highly recognized 1 to 10 grading scale, including half grades of 0.5 scores. Turnaround times as of right now are varied. Now, one thing to note is that this article is as of February of 2021, but much of the information here remains true as of the release of this video, as well probably and likely for the remainder of 2021, with some estimated improvements that many of us are hoping for in the hobby. They also mentioned that Beckett has the services ranging from modern and vintage cards as well as comic book grading. They were founded in '99. Now, I'll leave the link down below, like I'd said at the beginning of this video, so feel free to go ahead and take a peek. But I'm not going to read all of this stuff to you. The most important thing is the pros and cons. So, BGS Pristine 10s capture the highest value in the market, 100% agreed. One of the most important things to note is that the first edition Charizard, the highest valued ones have to be, or at least are estimated to be, the Beckett Pristine 10s that exist. So there's 3 of those with a gold label, none of which have the black label Pristine, but people say that the minute or if one of those ever got graded, it would likely be $1 million card, first ever sale, easy, no problems asked, and that's because it would probably be a population 1 of 1. It's not uncommon for us in the Pokemon hobby to see many cards get graded at Beckett nowadays, and the real reason for that isn't because BGS is on the up and up, but rather because there's one thing PSA does not offer, and that is a black label. When you have a black label, chances are they are so few and far in between that the rarity typically dictates that they will be population 1 of 1, or 1 of 2, or 1 of 3. So just as an example, Beckett black labels are by far the best thing you can get your hands on, and if you're grading with Beckett, it's probably going to be the reason you choose Beckett over everything else. Of course, they also have an established brand and reputation, and from a technical perspective, they do have an internal sleeve inside the plastic case. So this is something that is different from all other grading companies, is that Beckett actually sleeves the card in basically, kind of just a penny sleeve, and then places it into the card. And bear in mind, I'm making it very simple for everyone watching the video. I obviously realize it's not a penny sleeve, but what I mean to say is that there is an additional layer of protection within the case itself. The argument being some graded cards will actually allow for a little bit of wiggle room within the case, and so it can be a concern that in the future, constant shaking and vibration can damage the edges of the card. That sleeve helps reduce the ability for the card to get scratched, as well as vibrate or shake or move around within the case itself. Cons: pristine 10s are extremely rare. I don't necessarily consider that a con, but I get what they're saying. The supply of those and the chances of you getting one is going to be very low, and that's going to be a pain in the neck. The vintage card catalog is not as comprehensive as others. I feel like that impacts more so the sports world than it does ours, since we do have several cards that get graded, and of course our modern sets get submitted to Beckett with pretty severe frequency, and of course you have to deal with the delayed turnaround times as of right now. So if you're watching this video in either 2021 or likely 2022, you're probably going to bump into that issue as well. Next up is Gma Grading Authentication. So they have prices from $6 to $20 depending on service level and order size. So one thing to note is that they do have volume discounts, very similar to the way PSA sets up. They have a 1 to 10 grading scale with 0.5 scores, similar to Beckett, and they have delayed turnaround times as of February 2021. They were founded in the year 2000 and are out of Florida. Now, one thing I do want to say is that their value proposition says only $8 per card. Why pay more? Sports and non-sports cards, i.e. Pokemon cards. Now, GMA, I've seen a few of them. It's one of those things. They offer lower price services, but the brand recognition is really what you're going for here. So for pros, we have the lowest price amongst the services reviewed. So out of the 6, GMA is where you want to get your cards graded if you don't want to pay some stupidly high or absurd fee. And turnaround times for the basic service is actually faster than most, at least as of February 2021, based on the information they had provided on the website. So again, a positive there. If you needed absolutely 100% to get your cards graded for whatever reason and couldn't wait for PSA, I guess GMA would be the option for you, at least based on what information is presented here. Cons include the brand recognition. I have a feeling that many people watching this video may not even have heard of GMA in the past, so there's a perfectly good example of that. And then their Gem Mint 10 scores are valued less than competitors like PSA, BGS, and SGA. So, all things considered, you may get that 10, but you may not get the recognition of a 10, which, all things considered, is very important when things are arbitrarily graded from 1 to 10. A PSA 10 is worth more than an SGA 10, etc., etc. So there's that age-old argument of, which 10 is worth more, and yeah, you're not going to get that with GMA. HGA is Hybrid Grading Approach. So this is an interesting grading company to review. $20 to $55 depending on card. It's a 1 to 10 grading scale with limited information available as of February. Turnaround times vary, their services are card grading, and as far as the author of this article could tell, they were founded in 2021. So that is interesting, to say the least. So founded in Seymour, Tennessee, they're a brand new grading service that claims to be revolutionizing the industry by implementing software that will allow them to scan, analyze, and grade cards without subjectivity. Bold statement for you there, my friend. Very bold. So, Pros of this particular company. Technology-enabled grading will remove subjectivity and improve consistency. Yes. In fact, we've seen PSA and BGS make moves in this space as well, where they're now considering using machine learning and optical character recognition to really kind of scan cards and observe defects even before the human gets to see this stuff. And this is pretty common practice across the industry and across several industries, where the machine may make one determination based on an algorithm, based on optical character recognition, etc., and then a human is compared against that, making their own independent decision, and then the two are compared. And then sometimes you might have to override the machine, sometimes you agree with the machine, and then depending on the situation, you may document any disagreements between the human and the machine. So it seems like this is going to be a similar type of approach, and that technology could certainly help them stand out. Now, pricing is based on the turnaround time, not the card value. That's another interesting way that they're revolutionizing the industry, I will say that. Because with PSA, if they think a card is worth, $50,000, they'll charge you $5,000 to get that card graded. And that's not a joke. That's actually exactly how it goes. I might have the numbers wrong, but I know their most expensive service is $5,000 depending on the card. Now, the thing is that with this, it's all based around the turnaround time. So if you want a card in 10 days, you pay the 10-day fee instead of, and that could be a Gold Star Rayquaza or a bulk holographic from Chilling Reign. Doesn't matter, 10 days will determine the price you pay. So that's pretty neat. I think that's a really interesting way to pitch the grading approach, and I like that because it's also more measurable. With PSA, one of the major complaints people are having right now is that they're getting their cards back 180, 270, or even 365 days later, and they're still getting hit with these upcharge fees because because grading services are based on the value of the card, not the turnaround time. And technically, you could have just submitted the card with under the appropriate grade, let's say the $5,000 same-day walk-around service, and you could have got the card graded in one day as opposed to waiting 365 days and having that surprise sprung on you. So I would watch HGA. I don't know when or how they're going to launch and if they're not already accepting submissions, but I do like that particular format. The other thing is slab labels are color coordinated with team colors. I think that's pretty cool. We don't have team colors, but we certainly have types of cards, and I think that could be another big thing. A couple weeks ago, I did the eye appeal video, and I think the slab labels and the color coordination are going to be a big part of eye appeal for these cards. So assuming they don't use like Comic Sans font and do something hideous like SGC, LOL, yell at me in the comments, it helps me with the algorithm. I think for the most part, you're going to end up seeing a lot of people maybe saying, hey, these are good looking slabs, and that might help their cause. I've made that argument of PSA. PSA uses white and black, and it's super crispy because it basically matches every card ever made, regardless of the hobby you're in. But I do think it's cool that they kind of color coordinate. I think that'll be helpful. Some cons: new and unproven technology. Yeah, 100% agreed. The only thing that helps technology like this, and I only say this because I work very close to it, is volume. The more records or transactions or examples that are seen by the machine and the algorithm and the technology feeding it, the better off it gets. So HGA's first slab graded may not be as good or as accurately done as its millionth slab graded. And that could be a problem because right then and there you end up in the same position PSA is in, where one of the major criticisms is that their older slabs featured a far less stringent grading standard than their most recent slabs do. They've had the same grading standards, but the way those standards are applied has changed. In a similar way, this quote-unquote subjective eliminating machine learning could technically end up in a weird but similar situation nonetheless. HGA Gem Mint 10s, unknown to market date. Yeah, if none of them are sold, how can we tell you where they stand versus PSA? And then the lower grading price is higher to others, so, your 30-day turnaround is $20 instead of being $8 to $10. Or in this case, it's not the 30-day, but the 60-day submission. Typically, the value for PSA is like $8 to $10, but for them, it's going to be $20. So technically, you're better off submitting to HGA one random really expensive card than you are submitting 300 medium rare cards, if that makes sense. Next up is Psa Grading. It's the one you all always know and always hear about. So prices range from $20 to $5,000. You get a standard 1 to 10 scale, including 0.5 scores and qualifiers like off-centering, staining, printing defects. Definitely turnaround times have been impacted. Most are suspended as of May 2021. So that's that. You can't even submit to this company as of right now unless you're willing to pay $200. And they do literally everything under the sun, from autograph authentications on open packed, modern and vintage, etc., etc. So long story short, their PSA 10s are valued above all other gem mint grades in the market. There's a catch with that. So a gem mint for BGS is a 9.5, and that's where PSA beats them out at the gem mint level. Beckett went ahead and made the pristine, which is when it gets a 10 and either a gold label or a black label, and Beckett 10s are higher in value than PSA 10s. But PSA gem mints are higher than all other gem mints because for Beckett, that's going to be a 9.5. You do get the brand recognition, you do get the reputation, you do get the large modern and vintage card catalog, you do get their excellent website as well as all of the data and analytics that come with it. But like I'd mentioned, suspended grading and no half-point grades between 9s and 10s make it really hard sometimes to go between a lot of 9s look like 10s, a lot of 10s kind of look like 9s. It can get messy. Next up on our happy list is ISA grading. ISA is $10 to $25 depending on service level and number of cards or size of order. You've got a 1 to 10 scale with a 0.5 increment. 2 to 10 days, unknown if there are delays, but you should see ISA Grading if you're interested. They were founded in 2010 and they primarily do card grading. Pros, low prices compared to their competitors. As you can see based on this little graphic on screen right now, if you want, 2-day service and you have 100 cards or more, you get $15 a card. And that is comparable to the 5-day service where you could get 1 to 19 cards graded. So again, it's less about the value of the card and more about the speed and the volume of cards that you want. They also made a bold statement here. Customers are always pleased when their grading experience featuring quick turnaround, consistent grading, and a quality product, all at a fair price. And ISA has built its business on these cornerstones. So I can't lie and say that I'm not impressed, but I would hope that they do get some of the, recognition in the hobby that they deserve. So obviously some of the cons will include the brand recognition, as I literally just mentioned, and then the gem mint 10s will likely capture lower values, and this is probably one of the major reasons why these grading services are not being utilized to the extent that they should. So Sgc Grading is, I believe, our final. Yes, and for that we have the $30 to $3,750 card price, grading price per card, with a 1 to 10 grading scale including 0.5s, varied and delayed grading turnaround times as of 2021, and services include modern and vintage card grading as well as uniform authentication, which is pretty cool. So Sgc is probably one of the fewer lesser known companies that's actually been around for quite a while. Sgc was founded in 98, and it's ironic because although they've existed for that long, they just aren't as well known. But they claim to, of course, have set the industry standard, and they use these really weird wonky examples. So here you can see a Michael Jordan Fleer card from '86 that sold for $150,000 in January 2021. Obviously it should come as no surprise that when cards sell for that much money, I think it's pretty clear that the grading company that's being used is pretty legitimate. And again, Sgc is one of those. So Sgc Gem Mint 10s are valued similar to Beckett Gem Mint. So again, they function very similar to PSA 10s in that capacity, right? And they're higher than GMA, so at least there's that. They're not the bottom of the list. They do have established brand and reputation. The problem is that we haven't seen huge market penetration into the Pokemon TCG, but all it's going to take is 1 or 2 people before that becomes, pretty much a standard normal thing. If SGC made a bid, they could probably rapidly expand into the Pokemon hobby, and it should be said that I have even owned several SGC cards. So there are quite a few that have come through my way. Some of them are gone, some of them are in my collection. There's not a lot of them, don't get me wrong, but I do have a few, and I do know for a fact that they do grade Pokemon cards. One thing that I think is really cool is that the black area of their thing is kind of like a weird foamy material, so similar to the way that Beckett installs that really weird penny sleeve to stop things from jiggling around. They have that kind of foam that serves as more of a soft bumper, so even if it is wiggling around in there, it's bumping against something soft as opposed to the hard acrylic case, which in theory should save the edges over time. Pros, we went over that. The large card catalog, especially on vintage cards, that's a big perk if you choose to look into it. Again, the practicality of that for Pokemon is going to be diminished because there just aren't that many cards graded. And then the gem mint captures less value than the PSA 10 gem mint. So although it's similar in function, you have to look at it as PSA gem mints still command the highest for the gem mint area. They place second best in that capacity. So the article does wrap up by then moving to just do a quick comparing the grade market value, and everything is actually indexed off of a PSA 10. So I thought this was actually a really cool bit of analysis that was done. And so what this person did was they took a 2018 Panini Prism Luka Doncic and they basically said, okay, let's see what all of the different values are, right? So they first took the PSA 10 and it sold for $1,300. They made 10 observations of that, so that's why they're able to set the price at that, plus or minus a few dollars for any one sale. And obviously that's an index of 1 because every card is going to be compared against the PSA. Let's look downwards now, right? The SGC 10 sold for $795. There were 9 of those sales that kind of made up that average number. That's 0.61 of a PSA 10. So obviously SGC sits below the PSA 10 for sure. Ironically enough, BGS 9.5s are in a similar boat. They sell for 0.58, and then obviously then you kind of start trailing down. The GMA 10 sits above that at 0.48 or about $630. PSA 9s are about 425 or about 0.33 the value of a PSA 10. And then, from there, you can kind of read down the list for the BGS, SGC, GMA. The 2 that were excluded are the ISA and the HGA. For one reason or the other, not enough cards were graded that they were able to get a good read on this. The only cards that, kind of tail off are the BGS 8.5, the GMA 9, and the SGC 8.5, all of which had under 4 sales that, we could establish any sort of relevant price off of. The one particular item that sold above a PSA 10 was the BGS 10, and I don't know if these are black labels or if these are just gold labels, but what you will observe is that for the 2 sales that did occur, there was an average price of $4,725 or about 3.63 times the price of a PSA 10. So that just goes to show you Beckett is the leader when it comes to the pristines because nothing can simply beat them. So, to summarize some of the random things, the Beckett Pristine 10s are valued at 3 to 4 times PSA Gem Mints, a lesson we didn't necessarily need to learn, but fun to see it play out. And then the Gem Mints are valued at 1.5 to 2 times the Gem Mint grades from BGS, SGC, and GMA. And so GMA cards are just consistently lower in value than PSA, BGS, and SGC. So, final thoughts and conclusions on my end. Well, as always, you should grade with whoever you're comfortable with. As of right now, it's kind of a moot point because much of the discussion focuses on when are these grading companies even going to be able to open up and honor close to normal turnaround times for trading cards. PSA still shut down. There's only one service you can submit with at this time that I'm recording the video, and that's unlikely to change until they continue to further purge their backlog. I assume many of the other companies are in a similar position, or once they open up, like Sgc did, they'll probably get flooded and inundated with cards anyway. So the one thing I will say is, if you're going to go Beckett, the one thing I'd suggest you do is go for the go for the BGS Pristine Black Label 10s. The Pristine and the Black Label is where you want to be, because that is the only real differentiator that's going to get you consistently higher value for your card than any other scenario. If you're chasing a very rare card, again, similar concept. You want to go for the Beckett Pristine 10, whether it be Black Label or Gold Label, because again, it is consistently rarer and so much more extremely difficult to get that it'll be that much more of a collector's piece now and well into the future. For your general grading, I would definitely recommend avoiding GMA. It just doesn't seem to have the brand recognition that's needed in order to really get some good stuff out there with high amounts of value. HGA has impressed me because, again, it's all about turnaround times. It's not about anything else, and I actually low-key like that. And then if they partner with this technology and use it well, in theory, I have a feeling HGA may be an up-and-coming type of company to keep your eye on. But again, up till now, services are unproven, and as of right now, there's not even much of it out there for us to take a look at. PSA is the gold standard. That's where I grade. You all know that's where my bias lies. I am also significantly invested in PSA and making sure that it's a successful company, mainly because all or most of my cards are, in fact, unsurprisingly, PSA. Then you have ISA, which again, teeny tiny company, graded in 2010. I do like their turnaround schedule and the pricing schedule, but again, very little to no recognition. And SGC is the underdog. I think SGC is, ironically enough, getting overlooked by the Pokemon community, but again, all it's going to take is a few big submissions, and assuming they can do that and they can really kind of make a name for themselves, maybe with a special promo inviting people to submit Pokemon cards, I have a feeling SGC could very quickly break into our hobby and become a pretty widespread type of grading service that's used by collectors, both for vintage and modern. So those are my tidbits. But with all that said, friends, thanks again for checking out another video. If you learned anything new about any of the 6 different grading companies that were covered today, or how you should go about thinking about stuff, and even learned a new way of considering some of the different factors that play a role in grading and your card and collection's value over time, definitely feel free to leave a like down below on the video. And if you're not already, feel free to join the Gengar Gang by hitting that subscribe button. But other than that, I'll be down in the comments so I can make fun of CGC some more. And again, make sure to leave a comment or two about how CGC wasn't here, because again, helps me in the algorithm. But with all that said, friends, thanks again for your viewership. You could have been anywhere on the internet, but you chose to hang out with me, and that means the world. Other than that, friends, thanks again, and we will talk soon. Peace.